Hi, this is Gloria, your life coach. Welcome to another episode of Life's a Shuffle.
Hi, this is Ron Johnson, your life coach, leadership coach, motivational speaker, health coach, and personal trainer. So, we have a special guest today. His name is Ryan, and he's going to discuss today judgment versus curiosity. So, Ryan, kind of tell us about yourself. Where are you from? What do you do? Some background.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for having me. Genuinely pleasure. So, Ryan Stanley. I am a life and self leadership coach from New Jersey. Have been a certified professional coach since 2009. I'm a couple different things. I'm a little bit of an ADD entrepreneur. I think as I've become a coach, one thing I recognize what I love working with my clients on over the years has been specifically just recognizing that you can really do whatever it is that you want to do. And so, in that capacity, I've certainly taken that into my own life in a couple different ways. And so, I'm an author. I have a couple different businesses. I've got a t-shirt business. I've got obviously a coaching business. I've got a sales training company. And so, you throw you throw a couple kids and a wife in there, and it's enough to keep me busy.
That's a lot, yeah.
It is a lot.
But yeah, I've been coaching since 2009. A majority of my career was spent actually working with musicians and people in the music industry. Before I got into coaching, I was actually had an artist management company. So I was like working with a bunch of bands. I was managing bands, and what I loved most about that was really the connection, the empowering. Was a lot of people don't recognize or realize that musicians are actually entrepreneurs, and so they sometimes don't even realize that, right? So, but they are creating a product through song, through sound that they want to submit to the masses for an income and for a living. And so I loved being a part of that and helping them decide what was the best goals to set and how can we get them to move forward in the best possible manner. I didn't necessarily love dealing with shady club owners, right? And I didn't really, if I was working with a band and half the members didn't show up to practice on time or didn't care how many gigs we got or whatever, it turned more into babysitting than it was actually about creating something together. I got paid on the back end. And if they weren't doing what they said they're going to do, I didn't really feel like I was making as much money as I could. And then lastly, sometimes I didn't love the music. Sometimes they were great people. Sometimes they had a decent following. But to be out till 3 o'clock in the morning on a Wednesday in New York City, listening to the same music over and over again and having to sell it when I didn't really like it just felt unauthentic. So in 2008, I just kept hearing the term coach. Coaching came up in like 3 times in October of 2008. And I was like, oh, this is me. This is what I'm supposed to do. This feels what I'm already doing. And so I enrolled at IPEC. I know you guys are both IPEC grads in 2009. And I initially started working with musicians, and I did for many years. But I was able to get rid of all the things I didn't like. I was able to work with people who wanted to show up on time, who people wanted to invest time and money into their career. I didn't matter if I liked their music or not because I was coaching them around being a better human being instead of necessarily being a better musician or what type of musician. So I was really able to get rid of everything I didn't like, enhance all the things I did like. And through that journey, I've also learned a ton about myself, and has really served me in so many different capacities of my life.
Dude, I love the story
Wow.
there. Love the
What
story.
a journey you went through there.
Yeah, and that was just, it's been interesting along the way. And then as I've kind of matured in my coachiness, so to speak, I've moved on. I certainly still do coach musicians. I have a couple clients who are musicians, but I've also now I coach doctors, I coach CEOs, I coach authors, I coach just people in all walks of life who are really just more looking for more clarity and focus on who they want to be. A lot of people sometimes they say, what's your product? My product isn't coaching. I mean, that's what I do, but my product is clarity. My product is efficiency. It's accountability. It's forward momentum. It's joy. It's freedom. It's self-awareness. It's all things that people recognize that they have already. They just, or they know that it's an option, and we just prune off the dead leaves to help them find, new growth.
I like that.
So people will ask this very important question. So it kind of seemed before 2008, 2009, when we first started with IPAC, that you kind of got frustrated that you were stuck in like I guess it was turn to say you're lost. You didn't know what to do. It's become very frustrating. It seems like you're just hoping it would work or take off or whatever you're hoping that journey. Like what happened? Do you have an intuition? Did someone drop a pamphlet on the ground? Do you have a nightmare? Kind of tell me a little bit about that. That's kind of gap right there I want to hear about.
You're talking about when I shifted gears,
Yes.
specifically to become more of a coach.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think. Well, I think it's going to be a combination thing. So for me, it wasn't like one moment. Like I said, I've always been excited to create businesses in some capacity, and so I think at that point, I liked what I was doing, but I didn't love what I was doing, and I didn't feel as confident as that I could be the best manager that I could be. But as soon as coaching, like I recognized was a thing where I could start a business and I could go out and I could serve people from home as often as I wanted for all over the world. And even back then, obviously now we have Zoom, we have Skype, we have Google Hangouts, all these different things are extremely common. Back then in 2009, it was less common. There certainly was some video. I think I used Skype a couple times for some clients, but most of it was done over the phone. And even that was exciting to where I could kind of coach people in different parts of the world. So I think not only was it like, hey, like I said, it came up 3 times in a conversation. So that was kind of, I guess, to answer your question, more of the pebble on the ground. Like by the 3rd time in 1 month, I was like, okay, this is coming from somewhere. There's an opportunity for me to step into it. But also, I think my whole life up until then, like I knew. In fact, a lot of the time, I talk about how much growth I got out of the IPEC program. At the time, I didn't feel like I needed anymore. It's a little embarrassing to say, but I mean, really, I believed I'd done a ton over my entire life, and it wasn't why I rolled in the program. So I knew that I liked to serve others. I knew that I liked to empower others. I loved what I love most about entrepreneurship is that it is an opportunity for you to decide who you want to be every moment, and you are constantly creating. It's funny. I mentioned earlier that musicians are entrepreneurs, but what a lot of people don't realize is that entrepreneurs are creatives. Like it is an art form, in my opinion. You are starting with nothing. You are starting with a blank canvas. You are coming up with an idea and building it into something that you want to share with the masses. And that will, in some capacity, be judged by the masses one way or another. And so, like art is and can be. And obviously, it's all everybody's perspective is going to be different. But when you start stepping into it from a creative standpoint and know that there's an outcome that will serve you and others in the end, it just feels like a win-win scenario. And it was easy to jump into.
It seemed like it just flowed at that time.
Yeah. Well, and then also I went to IPEC and while I was there, before I even graduated, I connected with some of the leadership within the organization, and they actually asked me to start working for them before I even graduated. So I had more opportunity to surround myself with coaches and to get a little bit deeper into a community of people who want to serve. And so that was, more signs of that felt comfortable and were easy to flow.
Awesome, man. Awesome.
Yeah.
It's like when I did my coaching journey, I just felt that I can impact the world much more than just what I was doing in personal training. I felt that when I hired an IPEC coach myself, right? I got to the point where I was very limited what to do, didn't know what to do. So, it's one thing reading a book, it's one thing, reading a blog, it's one thing talking to people, but having that one-on-one support through obstacles is so impacting and so much more rewarding. You get more focus, more clarity, and when you have more focus, more clarity, you have more energy to impact yourself. So when I went to my coaching career, I realized that I got the same clarity that everybody else could serve because entirely, Ryan, you went through your trials and tribulation in New Jersey dealing with bands and promoters and all that stuff. There's someone out there probably going through the same exact thing you're going, probably thousands. So all of us, if really we just use our mind to the full capacity as the power is designed to, conquer those obstacles, become clear on those obstacles, what they actually are, and what those obstacles actually mean something.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. I had a friend of mine text me last night. She says, "Ron, she's going to chiropractic school, and chiropractic school can be very hectic, right? You got to go first. First of all, she wants to go to private chiropractic school. She got to pass her exam. Now you pass your exam, like, hey, great, you're a doctor. What's next? So you got to figure out: do I open a practice? Do I work for somebody? All these things are happening. She texted me last night, and she's like, "Ron, I'm so scared. I'm so nervous. I have so much anxiety. What do I need to do?" And it was very, very, very ironic. It was simple. All I did was this. I said, well, if you have this fear, remember, fear doesn't mean something, doesn't mean anything until you give it meaning.
Yeah.
So fear is just a word. Anxiety is just a word. Failing is just a word. But when you give meaning, it means a lot to you. And all I did was, as you know, IPEC, acknowledge and validate. And she felt so much better. She actually said, thank you. So I'm like, that's exactly what we needed because we're all afraid of something. So
Yeah.
listening to that story now and dealing with my friend last night, it's more important that this journey I'm on, I'm so thankful for it, and I can't wait to see where it goes for myself.
Yeah. And the truth is, from my experience, more often than not, fear is a liar. And more often than
Yes.
not, fear is, within us, and it's stopping us from stepping into our greatness. It's trying to keep us safe.
Hmm.
When if we decide to step into what's on the other side of fear, more often than not, is really where our greatness lives.
Yes, it does. That's the same thing my coach said. Because I realized, obviously, fear, FEAR, means false evidence appearing real. And most times, often, it's an illusion. I'm scared this may happen. Has that really happened? So, hey, no, it's really going to, is it true? See,
Right.
fear is just there to keep you safe, and really is just telling you a lie. Until you conquer those fears, most people say, "I'm fearless. I'm fearless. I do all these different things," but they really haven't conquered their fears.
Yeah.
But people that
Well,
say I'm fearless haven't done anything really.
right, exactly. There's not, and so I don't know who said this, but it was something along the lines, courage is not having fear. Courage isn't that you're not afraid. Courage is stepping through the fears
Yes,
and then pushing to what's on the other side.
challenge those fears.
Thank you.
I'll tell you about one of my examples. When I first started personal training, I was charging maximum $35 for my rates. That was like bare minimum for 1 hour session, $35, right?
Yeah.
We live in Bay Area,
Where do I sign
so
up?
rent prices out here are very expensive. I was charging very, very cheap those prices. So it was what the fear was is I was okay, if I go from 35 just to $45 difference,
Yeah.
I'm gonna lose clients, I won't be in business.
Right.
And that fear I thought kept me safe.
Yeah.
Actually, it's kind of more frustrating because I wasn't conquering it. It kept showing up. And it's like every time I didn't conquer that fear, it would get bigger and bigger and bigger. Before I know, it's like it's too hard to conquer it. Once I start conquering that fear and getting, I call it the invisible wall syndrome. There's a wall you think is in front of you, but it really doesn't exist. You give it power to what's in front of you.
Yeah.
So once I start conquering that money fear, which is obviously my own belief system, as we know in IPAC, once I conquer that, it's like, what was I thinking about? Now $35, you can if you ask for $35, it's like, no, I can't even touch that. It's way
Right.
more than that. So
Right.
just a simple thing as that.
Well, and the funny thing also on the other side of that fear is like, the perception of like, wow, I'm going to lose customers, as opposed to when a lot of things, when people see that you charge less or charge more, sometimes they take you more seriously when you charge more.
Oh
And they,
yes.
they show up more on purpose, and they're ready to do their work more because they respect your level of expertise on a different level. Not even necessarily knowing going in, but it's like, okay, people who charge X versus people who charge Y. Sometimes the more expensive people are like they take them more seriously.
And I will tell you that because I've experienced it. When I charged $35 an hour, I got cancellations. I got last minute cancellations. They didn't show up. They didn't follow the program. At the end of the day, they blame me for the not getting the results. When I started charging, way more than that, people showed up on time. They
Yeah,
realized, oh, if I cancel, he's going to charge me. They start
yeah,
respecting the contract details. Before $35 an hour, oh, don't charge me. No, charge half only. But when I start charging more, I still got more clients. I didn't lose
yeah,
any.
yeah.
So it kind of
It's
worked
about
out that
putting
way.
value on your time so that others put value on theirs.
Oh,
Okay.
awesome, man.
Let me jump in here for a moment. So, you guys were talking about fear, and I was thinking everybody lives in some type of fear every day, right?
Yeah,
But not everyone have that type of awareness also like what we do. So, Ron, you talked about, okay, you're thinking about raising your price, but at the same time you're thinking, what if nobody signs up? What if it's too much? What if, right? How I guess we're talking today. We're talking about Ryan. You're going to talk about judgment versus curiosity here.
yeah,
So fear comes with some type of judgment as well.
definitely.
Think it right. So you're like judging yourself on, and at this point, how does one conquer that fear that you live with every day? That you just it's within you. And then, yeah, if you can give us, just explain a little bit, what judgment is and curiosity and the differences.
Sure. So it's really powerful. A lot of the time, people say, what's some of the biggest differences, from before you were a coach and after you've done, 10 years of coaching. And for me, why this was such an exciting topic for me to kind of discuss with you guys is because that has really been, I think, one of the biggest takeaways. And it's not to say, I'm just to dial it back a little bit. It's not to say that I was this tremendously judgmental person before, right? And I hated most people and I was judging everybody. But, and in some capacity, we are all exactly who we should be for every single second of life that we lived up until until this moment, right? So if I'm judging myself or I'm judging others, it makes sense based on my life's experience. But in a lot of the time, to bring it back to what you're asking around fear, if it really comes down to judging yourself as not good enough. So to your point, Ron, it was like, well, I'm afraid of charging prices because I'm judging myself as not good enough that people would actually pay these prices. As opposed to, in this specific example, recognize that that is a fear. So what is the fear here? Why don't I want to charge prices? Well, because I'm afraid that people are going to charge. Cool. So if I want to take the opposite of fear and I want to go curiosity, and I say, well, instead of being afraid that people are going to not work with me, I could be like, how true, as you mentioned earlier, how true is that people won't work with me? You face the fear with curiosity. So before I'm judging myself as not good enough, now I'm being curious as to, well, what am I good at? Well, I'm a really good personal trainer. Why am I good? So again, you asking important questions. Well, because I know that I've done this certification. I've been trained by this person. I've got these many clients and these are the results. So all that. So now that I'm curious about that, instead of just judging myself as not good enough, I'm now being curious as to how good I am with the opportunity for growth. Then you can step into it. At any point, if you meet somebody, really judgment is and curiosity can be the same thing in the sense, and that's why I say they're the same side. They're two sides of the same coin. Judgment, you're recognizing something is different, and you're saying whether it's good or bad, and that could be yourself or somebody else. Curiosity, you're recognizing something is different. Instead of saying that it's good or bad, you're just curious as to why it's different. That's it. And when you really open yourself up to that, judgment limits possibility. Judgment says this is how it is, and I've already decided this is how it is, and it keeps it small, and there's no opportunity for growth. There's no opportunity for potential. There's no, this is what it is. Curiosity opens everything up to possibility because you're not having an answer. You're not saying it is what it is. You're being curious as to why it is what it is. Does that make sense?
Yes,
To me, it makes sense.
it does.
I want you to give us example to, because what's fortunate about all three of us, we went through IPAC. So this is like, oh man, it makes so much sense.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
How would you give an example to the person out there that, let's say they may be losing a job, or, some example where people that are just haven't went through IPAC, haven't done the work,
Yeah.
can understand what you mean?
So a real basic thing that we can all do at any given point to kind of start this road from shifting from judgment to curiosity, in my opinion, is going to be recognizing how often you use the word should. So when someone says, I should lose weight, I should exercise more, I should be farther along in my career, I should be in a relationship that I like right now, I should, whatever it is, all these different things that all of us do. I'm not judging anyone for saying these things, right? We're just saying these are common things that come up for people in life. It's part of being a human being. In any one of those situations, if you were to recognize the word should and shift it to the word could, by using the word should, you're automatically, an element of judgment in the energy. I should do this. I'm not good enough. I should lose more weight. I haven't lost enough weight, so I'm not good enough. I should be further along in my career. I'm not good enough. I could have been, I should have been doing better. As soon as you use any one of those and you shift to could, you know what? I could lose some more weight. It literally even feels lighter. I could be further along in my career. Cool. So what can I do about that? Right. So that's when the curiosity continues to unfold. I could exercise more. I could. So why aren't I? Well, because of this, because, and then, there's a deeper level. You come up with all these different excuses or reasons, but then by still moving from should to could, you're opening yourself up to possibility. So it's something anybody can do at any time. And even if, so that's for internal, but for someone else, well, he shouldn't have done that. He should do that. He or she, all these different things. Well, that's based on your life's experience. And had you been born the exact same time to the exact same person, I'm sorry, to the exact same parents as this other person who you're saying should be, and you lived every single second of their life, and including the really stressful ones, and including the responses and reactions to those stressful moments, and were surrounded by all the people they were every single second, you would be behaving the exact same way that they are in this moment. And so for you to judge them and say they should or shouldn't literally doesn't make sense. Now, that's not to say that actions don't have consequences. It's not to say that behaviors don't have consequences. It is to say, from a human level, from an understanding level, from a consciousness level, that if we're all one. And when we start to recognize that someone's behaving anyway, good, bad, ugly, whatever, they're behaving a specific way because of every single second of life they lived up until this moment. We don't have to like it at all, but we can recognize that that is their human experience. And as soon as we start to say more so, well, he could have done this, that opens us to less judgment right off the bat. But it also gives us a level of understanding. If once we are truly understanding someone's perspective and experience, it gives us a different level of empathy and understanding. And then from there, it's not that necessarily, again, I'm not saying if people are behaving in a way that is not right, there's definitely right and wrong, right? So recognize that, utilize that as an example for your own moral compass and who you want to be. And if you continue to decide to be the light you want to see in the world on a regular basis in every single capacity that you have, ideally people who are in there, wherever part of their journey, whatever their life has led, they've come to you, they've crossed your path for a reason, whether it be listening to your podcast, whether it be watching, just meeting you on the street, whether it be different things. They've drawn you into their life and you've drawn them into yours. And so our responsibility as individuals is to be curious. How can I serve this person? How can I be the light that I want to see in the world? How can I influence them so that they walk away from this conversation or listening to this podcast intentionally wanting to be the best versions of themselves, whatever that means to them?
So
Ooh, I love
I
that.
love that. So you would say, just for us, curiosity has more power than judgment.
And say that what you said, curiosity, what in judgment?
Does curiosity have more power than judgment,
Oh,
consciously wise?
my opinion, 1,000% more.
Okay.
I think judgment really just keeps us small. I think it keeps us
Hmm.
from moving forward. It keeps us from growing, and it closes possibility. But
So,
when you're curious, you open yourself up to limitless possibilities.
correct me if I'm wrong. What I got out of that is that curiosity is the key of letting go of judgment.
Absolutely. Because as soon as you start to be curious about yourself at any capacity and ask questions, you access a different part of your brain. Right. And so it's like funny because interestingly enough, like a question like, how does curiosity shift you out of judgment is literally curiosity shifting you out of judgment, right?
Hmm.
Right, because you're being curious, right? So right now, like, hell, I'm kind of judging myself for being judgmental,
Hmm.
right? And
Hmm.
so instead of me saying that, I could be like, I wonder why I'm judging this person for the person that they are. Well, I'm judging them on that because of how I lived and what my life was and what I was taught or whatever. Cool. So is that how I want, right? So now you're almost acknowledging and validating yourself. Okay, makes sense that I was judging. Is it serving me? Is it who I want to be? Is it feed my soul? Chances are no. So then you can be in that, then again, more curiosity. So what does? What does curiosity feel like in this moment?
So this is, I guess this would be a practice that anyone should, or not should, could could do. So
Yeah.
as with anything new, there's a learning curve, right? It's letting go of judgment is hard to become a natural and automatic part of our lives or anyone's lives.
It can be. Absolutely. So, but and just for clarity, it's like when we say, and that there's another space. So right now, you just judged this, and again, being human, right? So you just judged this as something that's hard to do based on your
I
experience and based
did.
on, right? So
I
so
did.
that's just it's a great point of how we do it all day and every day. So, but when we start to recognize, and to your point, so it can be hard to do because our whole lives we've created neural pathways, right? Our brains are physical habits of thinking of certain things, and like literally neurons firing in certain patterns. That's a physical habit that our body and our brain as a thing has gotten used to doing. And when you try to shift gears, and when you switch from judgment to curiosity, your brain is like, wait, hey, that's not who we are.
Yeah.
Just stay away from those new neurons. We don't even know what they are yet. So let's keep the same patterns that we're used to doing. So and literally from a physical level, once you are stressed or you are anxious or you are overwhelmed, your body sends out different types of chemicals, right, to kind of protect you. And so when we start shifting gears and we start becoming more curious and we release different types of chemicals and we access a different side of our brain, a different part of our brain, when we're asking questions, it's suddenly our brain will automatically look for an answer as opposed to like labeling something as the answer. It leaves it like, almost dead in the water.
Um,
Hmm.
something came up to me. So, and I like how you said, labeling and judging. I've recently went to dinner just a few days ago, and they had this type of food. I'm not going to say what it is, but it's authentic. So I'm not very adventurous with food, and
Mm-hmm.
it's authentic type of food. But I know now I'm guilty of judging because I do not like the smell,
Mm-hmm.
and so I don't want to eat it
Okay.
because of the smell.
Yeah.
But I felt bad because everyone's having it now. I felt like I should,
Yep.
right? Because everyone's eating it, I should just do it and just pretend that I like it.
Okay.
And um but what I've realized now listening to you is that I did try it, right? So I tried one and I realized that okay, well this one wasn't really that bad. it wasn't as bad as I thought. But because of, there's something about it I didn't like. I had never really tried this type of food.
Yeah.
So I was judging it. And
Yeah.
that night I said, I was looking at everybody and they were eating it, and I realized, well, maybe I should try it.
Yeah.
That so everything that came up to me that night was I should. I shouldn't be like this.
Yeah. And so, really, and that's great awareness. Totally. Right. So, in the sense, so I guess I should try it because everybody else is trying it. Right. All of a sudden,
Right.
it almost feels like, okay, I guess I'll do it. And, like, there can be some fun there in a food situation. But even in that, as a starting point, I could try it if I want to. Okay. So that puts me a choice. And you did, right? So you stepped out of your comfort zone a little bit, right? So there was a fear there of this thing that I'm not going to like. So there's actually a couple different things there, right? So there was a fear, but you tried it anyway, and turns out it wasn't that bad in the grand scheme of things. So, but then also just in the grand scheme of things, if you at any point, this is kind of a different topic, but eating something that you really don't want is different from, like, hey, stepping outside your comfort zone, but just or behaving in a manner that you really don't want because you're I should do this because everybody else is doing it is also a fear. It's a fear of what other people think. And that is a huge thing that people can start stepping into as well, because in some capacity, that is also judging yourself, right? You're judging yourself based on what you believe other people think. And when we stop doing that, we are more curious. So why is it important what other people think? Well, it's not, or it is, depending on who we are and what social situation I'm in. But in the grand scheme of things, they haven't lived every single second of your life. And so their opinion on whether you want to eat something or not it's none of their business.
Yeah.
and actually, how they feel about you eating that or not eating that is none of your business, because it really has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with them. So there's two things there. Like, I love that you did step into it, whether the reasons are it sounds like there's a couple lessons there, right? So we're always looking for lessons as
Yeah,
well.
there
So the
was.
lesson that I heard, and feel free to tell me otherwise, but one was that the reason you took it was for fear, but the fact that you ate that and realized it wasn't so bad was the lesson. Like, that there was an opportunity for you to learn something new by stepping out of your comfort zone. But when you got home and recognized how often you were saying, I should have done this, I should have done that, you're literally spending time and physical energy that you're creating with your mind through our thoughts of judging yourself. And when we start to do that on a consistent level, that in itself is also a habit. And that does not serve us. And that keeps us small as well. And
No.
so,
So how do we get how do we get anyone to l- step out of that and not live that habit? Like what I did. I
yeah.
was driving home and all I could think of was, I should have done this, I should have done that. But that's, like in here, I know we see this a lot, and I see this a lot, that this is what everybody lives by. And not everyone has that great awareness that we do. But how do we give them that type of awareness? I mean, do they have to take a step back and have a moment and think about that
So a
and have a
couple things.
shift?
Yeah,
Hmm.
great question. I think the first thing is we don't get people to do anything, right? And I say that with intention. Like, we're, our this is my opinion. What do I know? I'm
Hmm.
a dude in New Jersey. But from my experience, we don't. Our intention is not to get people to do anything. My intention is to be a version of a human that inspires other people to be the best version of themselves as well. And so you guys, and a great example of this podcast, by putting out content, we're at a time that's never been, there's never been a time where you can just create stuff and speak to the entire world as much as accessible as it is right now.
Right.
And so what can we do? The answer is we can be the best versions of ourselves and create information that will serve the world. And which you are doing, by the way. And so there's also a level of opportunity to, when we are starting to do that, we do have lessons. We have created a version that we prefer of ourselves, to create gratitude for that and to show life. Thank you for allowing me these lessons that learned me to be who I want to be. And when we start to do that, that sometimes gives us more lessons, which we may or may not like at the time, but we are all still, constantly growing. So it was kind of an annoying answer, I suppose. Like, you're saying, like, how do we help people? Really, I think is what you were saying, and I kind of turned it around a little bit too. But I just want to at least say that, right? In my opinion, our role is not to get people to do stuff. Our role is to, if they're seeking help, set an example. And in that case, it can go down to, again, even just starting with should versus could, and asking
Hmm.
yourself questions like, why did it? So when I got home, the whole way home, why was it? So why were you saying? So in fact, we'll just use that as an example. Why do you feel like your whole way home, those shoulds were coming up so heavily for you?
Um, I guess I was overthinking it. You know, at the moment, I felt bad,
Yeah. And you were
and
judging
yeah.
yourself as somebody who behaved inappropriately.
Hmm.
But at the same time, and not to kind of hit the nail on the head, but you behaved exactly the way you're supposed to. So it's okay. And if you don't like that behavior, then instead of spending physical time and energy looking at myself and judging myself for behaving the way that, and by the way, I say all this, it's easy when I just say it out loud. By no means do I say that I never judge myself and I never get concerned with the way I behaved. I'm not insinuating that at all. I'm really just looking from a detached human perspective. But when I say that, it's like, oh, so when you recognize, oh my gosh, I'm sitting here physically creating emotions that are not serving me and physically feel bad. I feel bad who I was. I don't like that behavior for whatever reason. A, you're either judging yourself, or B, you're fearing of being judged by someone else right now. Like a lot of it is, hey, I shouldn't have just behaved that way. But you're driving home and you're thinking, I'm not saying this was necessarily you, Gloria, but
Hmm.
in that situation, they might be, are those people sitting there talking about me right now? Are they thinking about the way that I behaved? Right. And so you're judging yourself based on somebody else's opinions.
Hmm. I think
No.
at that point, then for me, what you had just said right now is that I was judging myself
Yeah.
because I know at one point I felt like I'm better than this.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be like this. So yes, so I was judging myself.
Cool. So in that space, it can be like, what's the lesson then? Who do I want to be next time?
Me.
Right.
Hmm.
And so when we ask ourselves, when we recognize that we're judging ourselves, so a lot of this comes down to recognition. You have to be willing to look at yourself for judging yourself. And when you do, to then be like, great, so I'm judging myself for not eating the food. I'll just try to make it simple, right?
Hmm.
And so in the end, what would I preferred happen? So let's ask you that. So what would you prefer was the outcome instead of the one that you judged yourself for?
That I should have just been myself and just let everything flow and let it be.
Yeah. So now, if but you said that pretty quickly, right? Once the question was asked, so I asked you that question, but had you asked yourself that question, right? It was easy to go to.
Right.
And in that space of frustration or judgment of yourself, you could say, okay, so I'm judging myself for not being myself. So what is the outcome I would have preferred? Well, I would have preferred to be myself. Great. So how can I use this information and use this lesson next time? How can I remind myself? And now you've gone from judgment to curiosity, and it just feels better, and it'll serve you moving forward.
You know what? Just listening to you and Gloria, it's life. If we're not aware of what's happening, it turn us every way but loose. It's like driving a car with a defective steering wheel. I mean,
Yeah.
so simple as this. I should have performed better at eating. I should have ate the food. I should have done this. I should have, what if, and then obviously from should goes to what if they're thinking of talking bad about me? Oh, she didn't like the food. We don't even invite her again. It becomes a more domino effect. But when you shift curiosity to judgment. I'm curious. What if I did try this? What if I did like it? Can I step outside my comfort zone? Or you take should and shift it to I could be better next time, or just simply, hey, that's me. I just may not
Yeah.
like it, and that's
Hmm.
okay.
Yeah.
Hmm. It
Stop
just
shitting on
creates,
yourself.
yeah,
Yeah.
it creates so much more stress on yourself when you do and when you think that way.
Yeah. And then the other tip that just kind of pops into my mind when we find ourselves judging ourselves in a situation like that. So A, go back to everything we already said, right? That there's an opportunity to ask great questions and decide who you want to be moving forward. But B, then to also let yourself off the hook a little bit. Like, okay, when was a time like that I behaved like this? Maybe 10 years ago. Guess what? I don't know. I don't remember. Meaning it's not that important.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like 10 years ago, I might have gone out to dinner with another friend and done something very similar, and I might have felt stressed about it, but did it really have an effect on my life?
Probably not.
Yeah. In fact, I don't even remember it.
Yeah.
There's a real quick rule that I do anytime I'm first of all, this can be used for judgment of yourself, others, or just any stressful moment, or if we feel that we behaved a way that we don't like. Um, Maybe I missed something at work or whatever. If you ask yourself, like, How's this going to affect my life in 10 minutes? Well, it might. How's it going to affect my life in 10 hours? It might. How's it going to affect my life in 10 days? Now you start shifting gears. I don't really know that it will. It may not, depending on what it is. Cool. 10 days, 10 weeks, 10 months. I won't even remember this happened. 10 years, I don't even know where I'll be living.
That's
Mhm.
Right?
true.
So when we recognize like what some would call a mistake, and we sit there and we thrive on it, or we sit there and put all this physical energy of our mind and our thoughts, and when we think, we are creating energy. We're literally creating energy. Action is happening. Brain waves are creating. There's like literal alpha, beta, theta brain waves that come out of our mind, right? Physically. We don't realize that, but we are creating in every moment. I talk a lot about that in my book, but we're creating. So when you're creating stress, you're creating judgment, you're creating overwhelm. We're sitting there. There's an opportunity for us to. I could spend all this time saying, okay, what's the outcome that I prefer, and am I even going to remember it? And then I can use that same question to ask powerful questions like, is this going to bother me in 10 years? Who is this having a real effect on? And we start to be more curious about that. It's pretty powerful.
There's one word that we're kind of I'm curious about too is so you got I should, okay, we got judgment, we got curiosity. How about the what if syndrome? What if I did this? What if I do this? Why why is that coming out? The what if syndrome?
Yeah, it's probably very similar because you didn't do it, right?
No, true.
That's
So
true.
right? So the what if, it depends on what you're really in the grand scheme of things. It's how you utilize that question. So as I'm thinking out loud, to answer your question, it's like, okay, so if the what if syndrome is me judging, if it's more, not so much what if, but if I had only, right? Is that what I'm hearing? Kind of more, it's like
Hmm.
if I only did this, or if I did this differently, or, what if I did this, where would I be? Well, you didn't. So it doesn't really matter. And you didn't because you were exactly who you were up until that moment. And if you had gone back in time and been born the same day you were and led up to that very single second and learned every lesson up until that moment, you would have made the exact same decision.
Hmm.
Now that becomes a new lesson for you to move forward in who you want to be now. So what if doesn't serve us as much as unless now if you can utilize it. So what if I did this moving forward? Or what and what can I do about that tomorrow? What can I do about it right now? It's really about recognizing the now and deciding who you want to be in it instead of wasting time and energy being concerned about the past, which
Mm.
doesn't actually exist. It's really just past nows that we're remembering.
Yeah, because what if is really just what if I had done that before? So I've done this before in life coaching. I says, well, so you said something you would have done different 5 years ago, but it's only after you have more information.
Totally.
So if you done what you did 5 years ago, you may be at a different point in your life,
100%. A completely different trajectory.
completely different thing. So if you give more power to what if, you have less power for yourself.
Well, and less power in the now,
Yes.
which is really where all your creative energy is anyway.
That makes a lot of sense.
So how you sound like an expert here. So another thing too, let's be authentic. Through your entire life, even till now in this second, do you personally still face judgment, and what do you judge?
Yes, of course. Mostly I judge similar things. Like I find that I judge myself, right? Just a human place. Like, oh, like we said, I wish I didn't say that. I wish I didn't do that. I wish, or whatever. But I will say that I do it either I do it less and I do it for less time, right? So the human nature is to go to this space of separation. And when I recognize that I'm separate, that I'm creating separation from others, then it's an opportunity for me to be present and decide who I want to be right this second. What does joy feel like? What does love feel like? What does gratitude feel like? Right? So you can be curious in any given moment to raise your energy and to be more present and to be alive and to be in love with life itself. And the more we start to do that, the more we start to step into our greatness, and the more people around us are affected and feel it and have an opportunity to do the same. So, what do I judge? I mean, I certainly would judge behavior, right? I judge somebody's behavior based on that's not how I would act. That's not how I would. And by the way, so it might be myself, but like my kids, like I get angry at them.
Mhm.
For those of IPEC people out there, like people ask me, like, where does my level 2 come from? Level 2 is angry and is judgment and that's like sometimes it's raised most. And by the way, next to I mean, my favorite thing in the world is parenthood. I think my second favorite thing is coaching. The two places where I'm consistently teaching and learning at the same time. But I can say, like, when you tell somebody like 7 times to get off the table and they're standing on the table, right?
Yeah.
You're
You get
not
a
be
little
too happy.
frustrated.
They do exactly what you tell them not to do.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
exactly. So I don't know. It's a great question. So I mean, little things I'm just saying. So we do judge people. If somebody were to come into a room and start yelling and yelling and yelling, I would be, whether I like it or not, I'd probably immediately go to judgment. Like, oh my gosh, like dial it back. As opposed to, but shortly thereafter, again, I'm like, well, you know what? If I was him, I'd be yelling too. And so it becomes more about recognizing. So it's not that I don't judge as much as I just really am very aware of when I am. And then I'm able to get curious quickly and ask myself, is that judgment serving me? And, always the answer is no. Um, and then the next question can be, so how can I be curious about this? Or how can I create love? Or how can I create any type of an elevated emotion?
Right.
And sometimes, it's not that easy. Sometimes you just have to sit in a space where you're going to recognize that somebody's different from you. Doesn't make them better or worse. Doesn't mean you have to feel like, hey, I want to hang out with this person all the time based on their behavior. Um, but it can mean that you're just recognizing differences.
Yeah.
And through
And
that,
that's
we actually enable empathy, which serves us in all other areas as well.
I like how you said that that we can't sometimes I know we can't help but judge because it's part, let's say maybe it's part of human nature, but it's every day. But how do we, so we could be judging those who we don't really know. It could just be someone passing by or walking by.
Totally. And here's another example that just this popped up for me, so I'm going to share. So yes, you're absolutely correct. Totally, like you go to an airport and there's so many different opportunities for judgment,
Hmm. And we call
right?
that people watching. So we're
Right.
people watching and we're judging.
Yeah, absolutely. Now you would have, and the cool part is, and people watching is fun, is a great sport. And if you were to intentionally people watch with it from a space of curiosity instead of judgment, right? So the natural, and you're totally right. And I've been there 100 times, and this came up for me. It's like, so to sit there in an airport and instead of like, oh my God, look at that guy, or like, oh, I can't believe that guy's behaving that way or whatever. Um, Instead be like, wow, I wonder what that guy's story is like. Imagine what his life was like at some point. Or I wonder what he's going to do later tonight. Or I wonder where, you know what I mean? Like when we generally just get down to curiosity, what that person's life is like and what it would be like to physically be in every moment. It can be a pretty powerful experience. And there was something I was going to add to that, and I forget what it was. Oh, I was going to say, the other thing when people judge, it's an interesting way to judge ourselves by judging other successful people or who we judge as successful. So, in working with musicians in my past, a lot of the time they'd say, look at, I don't know, the Rolling Stones, whatever. You look at like the best people out there, people who are, YouTube is selling millions of albums, all these different people. And they judge them as like these people that have this perfect life and just jumped into being overnight successes. And so then
Hmm.
immediately they judge themselves as not being that good or not having that level of success. And so there's actually two judgments going on there. The first one is of judging these successful people as being perfect when they're not. And we really don't know the thousands of days, not to mention, hundreds of thousands of hours, who knows, in a full life career that were stressful and overwhelmed, or where they felt uncomfortable, or they felt miserable, or they felt depressed, or they felt like they weren't going to make it. Like we don't see those days when the person's up on the stage and they're collecting the statue for being whatever. We don't see their whole life in the down days and the sad days and who they lost in their family and when they were stressed and overwhelmed and when they couldn't sleep. And we don't see any of that. And we just judge them because of the face that they're putting on. And not that they shouldn't, but we see them at this level. And then all of a sudden we judge ourselves as not good enough because I'm not there. So it doesn't make any sense for us to judge ourselves based on that. And then that's the second judgment. We're now judging ourselves as just not good for not being born in that person's to that person's parent and living their life to where I'm not up on the stage like them. And it's pretty powerful, man. I mean, we are all on our own experience, and when you step into it, that's all that matters. Like decide who you want to be every single day and do something about it. That's what it's about. Stop looking at others. Look for others who inspire you. Look for others who empower you. We talk a lot about being the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And when we start to recognize that maybe our crew is not inspiring us or empowering us, there's an opportunity to bring others into our life that do. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be people who you know personally. We're in such an amazing time right now where if you spend time on Instagram, you spend time on YouTube, you can search out empowering people. Take people like Les Brown, you take people like Tony Robbins, you take people like Dr. Joe Dispenza, Gary Vaynerchuk. Like there's people out there who are putting out a lot of content and want the world to be want to lead by example. And when we choose to surround ourselves with that type of content instead of watching episode 12 of season 16 of something that I've seen already, spending hours doing that, that's an opportunity to surround yourself with people that will serve you best and make you more of who you want to be.
So true.
Yes. So good.
This is so if we really think about it, Ryan,
Yeah.
what is the root cause of judgment? Why has it even existed?
That's an awesome question. So it is separation. It is competition. I'd say it's competition. And it's this belief that we have to be better to survive. In fact, and I'm thinking out loud, it probably in recent times goes back to Darwin and his science of 200 years ago saying that we survive by survival of the fittest
Mm-hmm.
and having buy-in on that as a society. And to be honest with you, it's just not true. And that science is old and people have accepted it as being, I mean, if you took most science from 200 years ago and applied it to science today and really looked into it, right, there's going to be some differences in there. And people have blanketed, well, survival of the fittest. Like Darwin says, that's how we all survived. Truth is, we're not here to compete. We're here to create, and we're here to coexist, and we're here to empower, and we are all one. And when we start stepping into that, how can I be the best version of myself? Not so that I can beat you and be better than you, but so that I can lift you up and empower you to be the best version of yourself as well, so that you can go ahead and do the same for others. And when we start to recognize that we're judging people as less than us or better than us, it puts us at a place where we have to beat them or be beat by them. That is what holds us down, and that's what separates us. But when we step into compassion and empathy and awareness, and we live on purpose for others as much as for ourselves, so we can be the best version of ourselves so they can do the same, like that's when judgment disappears. That's when curiosity and creativity becomes the norm. And that's when we love each other and we connect and we empower each other to be the best versions of themselves.
That makes so much sense. Some people will judge others to make them feel better.
Totally. And they don't even know they're doing it.
Yeah.
It's actually funny. Like when I remember like being in high school, it's like funny. And I see this is a blanketed statement. So I remember seeing a lot of girls in particular going into high school where there's often girls who did not get along at first. This happened many times. I always see like they were like literally it's like they didn't like each other from afar and that their energies bounced off each other. And they were always the ones who ended up being great friends.
That's so true.
Right. I don't
I've
know.
seen that. No, it's true.
And I
All
can't.
walks of life.
Yeah, I have students like that.
Yeah. And so, so it's from my experience, but I remember seeing that a lot in girls in particular. And just the fact that they were always, and so it's like this thing, it's like they're afraid that they're judging others so they can feel better about themselves.
Yeah.
And then once they do, and they realize that we're kind of the same anyway.
Yeah. And
And
they end
typically,
up becoming best friends.
yeah. And typically when we're judging something from someone else, it's because we are afraid that we have the capacity to be that.
Yes, it's a reflection of ourselves.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we're afraid that in some capacity, you're a human and I'm a human. If you're behaving this way, I have the potential to do that. And so if we recognize, and I love that you just said it's a reflection of ourselves when we decide to be the reflection, right? Or we decide to be what we want others to be reflected, that's what makes a difference.
You know what? I was thinking to myself just right now. When you think about judgment, it goes a lot of different directions, but since once it can go from judgment to curiosity, from judging this to judging friends, judging people you never met, to judging what you see on TV. Gloria and I we did a podcast a couple of weeks ago on racism, and we did some research, and really, when it came down to racism, right? Just let's take the context of removing skin color, okay?
Yeah.
1500th century, the judgmentism back then and how it all formed, right? Because obviously, part of racism definition is you want to be more superior than somebody else.
Yep.
It's Europeans when they were traveling different continents, Africa, wherever. I give an example. Even let's say America, they're like, "Well, I'm Christian. You're a different religion. I'm better than you."
Yep.
And until I figure out if you're good or bad, I'm going to be better than you. So I'm going to try to control you so that way you don't control me or go against my beliefs, right? Because out of judgment too is an inherent value system, right? So you value certain things, so you tend to judge things that are inherent with the value system.
Yeah. And you want to change people, right? Well, to the even before the slave aspect of it, but even just like, I'm a Christian, I'm better than you. Now it's
Yes,
my job to change you,
correct.
right? That's judging you is not good enough to my standards.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
premises is just my religion's right, your religion's wrong.
Yeah.
That's simple as right or wrong. And that's what I really loved about IPAC in general. I try to tell my clients, tell people around me, there's no such thing as right or wrong. Now, certain things are right and wrong, but it's all about your perception, your context of what is right and wrong. I gave some examples of the death penalty. Some people vote death penalty, an eye for an eye. And some people say, no, it's wrong. You kill human beings. So who is either right or he's either wrong? It's not. It's about your perception and your journey and what you view to be right in your life and your values.
Yeah.
So it's funny how the whole, when we talk about things that go in life and, you got protests going on right now. I don't know if you're affected in your city or not. We're affected out here in Northern California. Um, the main thing is that if we sit down and listen to people with curiosity and really stop having these judgments upon what is right, what is wrong. Let's take for example, police. I don't know if you're on one side or another, but police, right? There's some great
Yeah.
cops. There's
Yeah.
some really not so great cops. That's just being a human being.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
mean, that's just what it is, and people don't understand that it's just being a human being. You're gonna get some that are right and some good or bad, but it's just we never want to sit down and have the hard conversations.
Yeah.
It simply wants to sit down. I'm right, you're wrong. Let's prove. Let's have a battle now.
Right. And that in itself, I mean, that shows up in so many
So
types
that's
of
where the judgment and
relationships.
competition that Ryan was saying, that's where it comes in then. It's a competition. And then
Yeah.
we're judging others based on other people's view.
Hmm.
I think that racism is actually the purest version of judgment because it's literally nothing. You know what I mean? It's nothing but an opinion. It's nothing but, like, something that you're just making up.
Oh, it really
Um,
is.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I believe in that
So
because it's. I always tell people it's the bigger machine we're not looking at. We're just looking at skin color or poverty versus have versus have not,
it's all
education
separation.
levels. We all try to separate each other to have one leg on somebody else. I go to this school in this district, so my kids are better than your kids that go to a public school in a different district.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, my kid in my district can become a brain surgeon that your son might need help with.
Right.
Oh,
I mean, it'd
yeah.
be just simple
That's
as
true.
that. They don't even
Yeah.
think about that context.
Yep.
And just because, depending on what school you went to, what background does not define your life.
Not
What
even a
defines
little
your
bit.
life is decisions you actually make.
And yeah, and who you are in each moment,
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, no, I mean, it's again, it's a powerful concept if we can really start to, it's not, oh, can't we just all get along? It's like, how do we show up as our best self in each moment and stop judging others for anything? I mean, there's obviously there's certain things that need to be monitored, behaviors, but I just feel like I think if more and more people, I really, people say, Ryan, like, what are your tips as a life coach? Like, what are your tips for life, right? And in the shortest version possible. It's literally make time to write down and decide who you want to be in your life. Create what I'd call a North Star document. Right? What is my North Star? Who do I want to be as a human? Who do I want to be as a father or a mother? Who do I want to be as a spouse? Who do I want to be as a sibling? Who do I want to be as a friend? Who do I want to be as a professional? Who do I want to be health wise? What do I want? What's the ideal best version of me? Right? What does it look like? What does it feel like? And write it down. A, that's A. B, read it aloud every single day. Wake up in the morning, remind yourself of who you have the possibility to be. Read it aloud every night before you go to bed. That's B. C, now you're reminding your subconscious. You have the North Star. It's there. You created it. Take action on it in some capacity every single day. It could be for 5 minutes, it could be for 10 hours. Decide who you want to be, take action on it. Actually, decide who you want to be, remind yourself of it, take action of it, and then be the light that you want to see in the world. Lead by example. And if you do all 4 of those things every single day, like this is our run, man. Like this is our life. This is the life that you have. What are you doing with it? Who are you being? How are you inspiring others? Are you making time to inspire yourself? And it's one of these things that's simple but not easy. But once you realize that it's simple and you make a practice of it, like anything, anybody who's successful in anything, it takes practice and consistency. So being the best version of yourself is going to take practice and consistency. But when you step into that and you spend a 365-day year reminding yourself of who you want to be, taking action on it every single day, being the light that you want to see in the world, I guarantee that your life is going to be in a completely different place than it was on day 1 than it was day 365.
So out of one of my books, it was Letting Go by David R. Hawkins. I kind of printed it out, I put it on my wall, and it goes like this. The impossible becomes possible as soon as we are totally surrendered to the situation. And that's why I lead by where I'm going to be the best version of myself. No, first, sorry. I'm going to be the change I want to see in the world by giving up the thought of everything is impossible to the thought of things will be possible daily.
Yeah.
And that's why I kind of say to myself, I'm going to be the change I want to see in the world.
Totally. And it's funny, you added something in my brain that I forgot. So yes, going back to like step A is write it down. Step A and a half is believe that it's true. Believe that it's an outcome. Believe that it's a possibility. Right?
Because
You
if you
have to
don't believe
believe
it's
it.
a possibility, it won't happen. It just won't
You
because
won't
you're
take the other
fighting.
step. Correct. Because you'll be spending more time and more focused energy on that it's not even a possibility.
Yep. I guess one of the best scenario. Have you ever been doing a project and you be doing it, you can't figure out the solution to the project, but you step away, let's say for a couple hours or 24 hours, you come back and all of a sudden you have a solution because you've had more freedom to now think freely versus only think I can't solve it, I can't solve it, I can't solve it. And that starts playing in your brain over and over. Before you know it, I can't solve it. But if you take that moment to regress, walk away, come back, figure it out. I don't know if you're given IPAC when you graduate, but we're given solution what's it called? Solution and problem. So I got the same thing, and mine always says straight up, always says solution. I never say on front problem. So my rock's on my desk and it says solution the whole time. So um, that's what I do because it allows me to the capacity to realize there are 1,000 solutions. I just got to be creative,
Yeah.
figure it out.
Unlimited possibilities.
Yes.
And that's exactly where curiosity comes into play. What is the
So
solution?
yes, what are
Right?
my choices? Do I have a choice? Well, first of all, you have to know you have a choice, and then what is the solution?
Yeah. And to your point of even stepping away, right? So that is a choice as well. Right? Let me step away and then give my brain a break and go out and create some gratitude or go out and appreciate nature or think of somebody who I love unconditionally. Shift your physical energy. Shift the chemicals in your brain, create an elevated emotion. When you're feeling these things, you're feeling overwhelmed, I can't come up with a solution. That's okay. Take a step away. And one thing that I'll also just say in all of this stuff, whether it be, not necessarily the judgment versus curiosity, but more so in like, hey, just deciding who I want to be. The other piece is patience. Like, more often than not, depending on what your audience is, I mean, if you're anywhere between the ages of 20 and 40, you've got like another 80, 60 to 80 years ahead of you, which is 3-4 times your life. And if you are stepping into your greatness on a daily basis on purpose, it doesn't necessarily all have to happen right now, this week, this month, this year. But when you know what the outcome is and you believe that this is the outcome, it's already happened. And you create gratitude for that outcome in advance and spend more time focusing on what the outcome that you want is going to be and creating gratitude for it. And know that I literally have so much time. Don't feel pressure. It doesn't mean don't do anything. Quite the opposite. It just means don't be stressed about time. Don't add one more pressure into your life that doesn't serve you or the outcome.
Mm-hmm. No, Ryan, man, we can go in another couple hours, but there's almost an hour has been up, and it has been amazing. I mean, I'm at the edge of my seat listening to
Me
you. You
too.
have a great voice, a great presence, and the thing is, through the microphone and headset, actually, I feel you believe what you believe. So if I try to tell you something different, like, no, this is the way. And it's really great to hear someone that resonates the same thing I resonate with. So I was silent for a period of time because I'm listening, because I'm like a sponge. I like to hear the information, then I progress forward what I want to do versus just, speaking just without thinking first. So
Yeah.
before we wrap it up, I want you to give our audience one last thing or things you can say that will allow them to shift from judgment to curiosity.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity. Oh my gosh, where do I go? I mean, I think we've covered a lot of that. I would take it back to really I guess the first thing comes to asking yourself, what or who am I judging? Right? You have to be aware of the judgment first. And the best way to do that is almost to detach yourself. And that takes practice as well. Right. And so if I'm judging, sometimes we judge other people for judging, right?
Yes.
So it's really
Hmm.
just being aware of the judgment and being aware, is my thought separating us? And that can be, again, for myself. Is my thought separating me from my highest and best self? Is my thought separating me from, is that thought, which could be considered judgment, separating me from being the ideal version of myself? And if there's judgment there, you're typically, the answer is yes. In fact, and this, everybody's going to have different opinions, but as I'm thinking out loud, if you're judging somebody else and you ask that same question, is this thought, stopping me from being the best version of myself, and you recognize that you're judging somebody, chances are the answer is yes, because you are creating separation as opposed to love and intention. And how can I serve? And what would the best version of myself look like in this moment? How can I be here now and create with love and intention? Not to get all hippy dippy, right? Peace, love, and everything. But really, in the grand scheme of things, from a physiological level, when we create love, when we create gratitude, when we create compassion, either accidentally or on purpose, we emit a different type of physical energy. Like our heart emits a certain type of energy. There's measurable waves up to 8 feet away from our body that can be read by certain things, right? So our heart, which is where all creative energy comes from, it creates our whole body. It creates our life. When we add, when we think about that, and we add compassion, we add joy, we add gratitude, these elevated emotions, and put it into our thoughts and into our intentions, you know, it creates more of it, and people will feel it, whether they know it or not, subconsciously or not. People feel that, and it will have an effect on their life. So to go from judgment to curiosity, A, know that just in itself will serve you. B, just by being curious, to asking the question that you just asked, how can I go from judgment to curiosity, is in itself going from judgment to curiosity. I guess I'll leave it at that because it kind of brings it all right back. I know there was
Wow.
a in there, but I forgot what it was.
No, I love this. And thank you for sharing that. This is what I just wanted our listeners to know, that this is what we're here for, to kind of give that type of, or that level of awareness to the people and change the world. Like I became a life coach and a teacher to change the world.
Yeah,
And I know you guys did too. And this is, would you say that to teach others the tools that we know, and hopefully for them to share and use it to help the world too?
absolutely. Well, it goes back to, yeah, be the change you want to see in the world. Be the light you want to see in the world. When you are, you'll see it more. I told my wife last week I wanted to be the one of the things, actually, I say it regularly, is I am the magnifying glass for the awesomeness of the universe.
That's a good
Right.
one.
So
Yeah. Yes. Thank
just
you.
bring it
Thank
into
you.
place so that other people can see it.
Like that one. Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Ryan. Appreciate it. And you know what? We're gonna have to. I'd say this. You have to come back.
Yeah,
And
I'd be blessed.
I wrote down this when we were talking, and it's something that I think everybody's gonna be dealing with in this time, and this be great for you from your experience. So, topic next time, tentatively, I will talk to Gloria, is how to create the life I want,
Cool.
because that would be a great topic for our listeners out there. Because right now we're in times where people don't know what to do or how to create, or it's always striving after the win. They always say, if I get the good job, I'll then create the vacations and the homes and this I want. But then at the end of the day, they're still not happy. You wonder why? Because they're
Yeah.
living a lie. This really is.
Yeah.
And so we want to talk about next time. So I'm going to wrap it up. So as always, guys, this is Ron Johnson, your life leadership coach. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me on social media, Instagram, Facebook. And my website is www.ronbusinesscoaching.com, because that's why podcast is called Life to the Shuffle, because life really is a shuffle. And we're just trying to shuffle the cards and play the right hand and try to be the best we can daily.
It sure is. And again, thank you, Ryan, for sharing
Yeah.
everything that you've shared to our listeners today, and hope that they this is something that they'll learn something from, and a lot from, because I know I did, and I'm sure Ron did too. We learned so much from you today. And thank you for
Yeah.
listening. Yeah.
I'm blessed to be here. Thank you guys so much for having me. Really, truly an honor. And I'm excited to do it again.
Yeah, so we're looking forward to that. And again, thank you for listening to another episode of Life's a Shuffle.